Good morning, everybody. As we go to the Chitas of today, we're holding Chumash Parshas Nasai. We're holding on chapter 7, verse number 1. It came the day that Moshe Rabbeinu finished to erect the Mishkan. And he anointed it. He sanctified it. It's called Caleb and all its vessels. It's a Mizbeach and the altar. It's called Caleb and all its vessels. And he anointed it. And he sanctified it. Now she says, Kalois, interesting word, which comes from the word Kala, which is a bride. For on the day the temple was erected, the Jewish people were like a bride entering the bridal canopy. Kalois, Moshe. Now she says, what do you mean? Betzalel and Eliav and all the wise-hearted people, they were the ones who made the tabernacle. Yet the Torah says Moshe Rabbeinu made the tabernacle. This is because he applied himself to oversee the form of each item, whereas God has shown him on the mountain, instructed the craftsmen that they exactly so, and he did not err in a single form. We find the same with David HaMelech. When he applied himself to prepare the construction of the Holy Temple, it says God remembered David, behalf all of his affliction, how he swore to God that I will enter my house. I will not lie on my couch. I will not allow my eyes to sleep until I find a place for God. It was called on his name. That's why it's called the house of David. Even though he didn't build it, his son built the Beis Hamikdash, but he gave his life to it. Kalois Moshe. Now she says, it doesn't say B'yom Hakim, on the day which Moshe erected. This teaches us that all previous 7 days of installation, Moshe erected and dismantled it. Every day he took apart the Mishkan. Therefore says, on the day which Moshe finished erecting, meaning on the day that he repeated the erection of the tabernacle ended, on this was the first day of Nisan. On the second day, the red cow was burnt. On the third day, the Levites dashed the first dashing of water mixed with the cow of ashes. On the seventh day, they were all shaven. And then, on the eighth day, was a day that Aaron HaKohen was installed as the Kohen Gadol. Verse number 2. We are going back to the Chodesh Nisan. Chodesh Nisan v'kriv v'nesi Yisrael Rashi Avos Avoseihem Nasi Amates Heinei Lapekud, under the prince of Israel, the heads of the fathers' houses presented their offerings. Heim Anasim, these are the princes, Amates of the tribes. Heim Ma'im Lapekudim, they're the one who presented during the counting. Now she says, who are the foremen? Who are the Heim Anasim? Who are these guys? These were the foremen in Egypt, and they were beaten on their account. As it says, the foremen from among the Israelites were flogged. They withstood with Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron when they counted the Jews. As it says, there must be one man for each tribe. So these were special guys. And they brought their offering before God. Sheish agolish tzov, 6 covered wagons. Shnei asov bakar, 12 cattle. Agola shnei asim, a wagon for each 2 princes. V'shoy lechad, and 1 work bull for each one. By Kriva Yisrael Mishkan, they presented these wagons to the tabernacle. Now she says, ain't tzov. What's in tzov? Tzov means nothing more than covered. And so it became Ubatzivim, it's brought on Refidim, it's brought on Yeshayahu, with covered wagons and mules. By Kriva Yisrael Mishkan. Now they presented them in front of the tabernacle because Moshe did not accept it from them until he was told by God. Abnasa said, what prompted the princes to be first to contribute here? We're in the construction of the tabernacle. They were not the first to contribute. It was only because at that time, this was the time the princess says, let the community contribute whatever they can, and whatever is missing, they'll complete. Once they saw that the community had provided everything, as it says, what had been brought was enough, they said, what can we do now? So the only thing they brought was left the two to bring, the onyx stones and the incense stones of the ephod and the breastplate. Therefore, here they contributed first. They were the first to contribute to the base to the Mishkan, the korbanos of the Mishkan. Now the Torah is going to go through the korbanos that they brought every day. God said to Moshe, saying, "Kach mitam, take the wagons. These wagons will do the service in the Mishkan. And you shall give it to the Leviim, each person according to his work." Because it needed these wagons to carry the walls. And Moshe Rabbeinu took the wagons and the cattle, he gave it to the Levites. Verse 7, he took 2 wagons and 4 cattle. He gave it to the tribe, to the clan, to the family of Gershon, according to their work. For the burden of the family of Gershon was lighter than the Merari, who carried the heavy planks. So they got 2, and Merari got 6. I got 4. And then he gave the 4 wagons, and the 8 cattle. Nasal of name Merari, he gave it to the family of Merari, according to their work. Biyadi Samar, in the hand of Isamar, but not Nakoin. But to the family of Kahas, he didn't give anything. Because they had to carry the Aron and the Shulchan, and these were carried. But Kosev Yisod, these were carried on their shoulder. Now she says, they carried the holy object, the ark, the table. Therefore, they were to carry it on their shoulders. That's why there were poles. I could even understand the princes, these Nasiim, brought offerings, dedicating of the altar. And the Nasiim brought their karbanos before the Mizbeach. Now she says, after they contributed the wagons and the cattle to transport to the tabernacle, they were inspired to contribute an offering for the altar in order to dedicate the Mizbeach. And the Moshe did not accept it again until the Eibishter told him to accept it. So even though this was a self-inspiration of the Nasiim, but Moshe Rabbeinu would not accept it until God would tell him that they should accept it. Verse 11, God said to Moshe, each prince should bring their sacrifice per day. Each prince from the Chodesh Nisan should bring their tribe's sacrifice, the Chanukah Samizbeach, for the dedication of the altar. Now she says, but Moshe Rabbeinu did not know how they would bring their offering. In the order of the birth, or in the order the tribes were organized as a journey, until again he was told by God, they must be offered a sacrifice according to the order of the journey formation, each one in respective day. So Yehuda was the front of the line, and he was the first. The tribe of Yehuda was the first to bring the day's carbon, because he was in the east side of the camp. The first day, the Chodesh Nisan, the first one to bring the sacrifice, Nachshon ben Aminadav, Nachshon the son of Aminadav, the Mata Yehuda, to the tribe of Yehuda. Now she says, that day they received 10 crowns. It was the first day of the 7 days of creation. The first day of the offering of the princes, as it stated, it was like Yom Rishon. The first day was like the first day of creation. The Mata Yehuda says that the dedication of the Beis Hamikdash like the days of creation by God. The Mata Yehuda, to the tribe of Yehuda, the Torah gives his ancestry as being his tribe. But the intent is not that he collected money from his tribe to bring the sacrifice. Or perhaps it means on behalf of this tribe, meaning that he collected money from his tribe to bring the sacrifice. In order to rule out this concept, the Torah says later, this was the offering of Nachshon. He had to bring it for himself. He brought this carbon, even though he brought it in dedication of his tribe, he brought it on his own account. He brought it from his own funds. The Torah is going to give us the exact repetition of each tribe. Korbana, and he brought Karas Kesav Achaz, he brought a 1 silver bowl. Shleishu Mei Mishkala, which weighed 130 shekel. Mizrak Echad Kesav, he brought 1 silver dashing basin weighing 7 shekel. The shekel HaKodesh, this is according to the value of the sacred shekel. Shnei Maser Maleim Selas, both filled with fine flour. Belul Bashemen, which was mixed with oil. Lemincha, for a meal offering. Now she says, Shnei Maleim Selas, what was this meal offering? As a voluntary grain offering. Verse 14, Kafas Sarazav, 1 golden spoon weighing 10 shekel. Melei Ketera is filled with incense. Now she says, why did it weigh 10 shekel? 10 gold. It means that as Uncas translated, it weighed 10 silver holy shekel. Melei Ketera, filled with incense. We don't find any case incense was brought with individual or the outer altar except this one. This was only the carbon and siyum, which was the only time this happened. It was a one-time ruling. Parecha ben Bakar, they brought also with them 1 bull, 1 ram, ayal echad, keves echad, 1 sheep, ben shnase la'olah, as a burnt offering. And as he says, parecha, the unique one, the choicest of herd. Verse 16, sirizim echad lechatas, he brought 1 he-goat as a sin offering. What was a sin offering? To atone any possible ritual defilements. So it says walking above an unknown grave in its depth. So it came about, again, people can walk over graves, not knowing that they're defiled and coming to the Beis HaMikdash. Verse 17, and to the peace offering, Baka Shnayim, he brought 2 bulls, Elim Chamisha, 5 rams, Atudim Chamisha, 5 he-goats, Kvas Bnei Shana Chamisha, 5 lambs. The first year. Zeh Karban. This was the sacrifice of Nachshon ben Aminadav, Nachshon, the son of Aminadav. Verse 18. The second day, Nisan and Mitzur brought a sacrifice. Nasi Yisachar, the tribe of Yisachar. Now, why does the Torah say Hikriv? He brought regarding the tribe of Yisachar, which is not said regarding any other tribe. Because the tribe of Reuven protested and said, "It's enough that the prince of my brother Yehuda, I'm the oldest. Why is Yehuda bringing the first sacrifice? Let me at least have the prince offer after him." Moshe Rabbeinu said, the Almighty told me, the princes must be brought to offering the same order of the journey formation by the division. It therefore says Hikriv Eskana. He brought his offering. Hikriv is written without the usual yud. This implies that the imperative form Hakriv indicating he was commanded by the Almighty, because there was an argument on this, and therefore it says Hikriv, he was told to bring it. Why is Hikriv, he brought, said twice? For on account of 2 things, the tribe of Yisachar merited to be the second tribe to bring the offering. One, because he was well versed in the Torah, as it says, and from the descendants of Yisachar, those who comprehend the fixing of times. And the other, because he advised the princesses to contribute these offerings. He was the one who came up with this idea. Indeed, in the works of Rav Moshe Hadashin, I found that Pinchas ben Yair said, Nesanel, the son of Tzur, gave them this advice. And in honor of his giving the advice, he was honored to be the second after Yehuda to bring the sacrifice. He brought his offering 1 silver bowl, Malaya Kadaka Shleishu Meim Mishkala weighed 130 shekel. Mizrak Echaz Kesev is one silver basin weighing Shivim shekel. Shekel HaKodesh in the holy shekel. Shnei Masam Aleim Sela, both of them were filled with fine flour. Belula Bashem and mixed with oil, the mincha. Now she says, the numerical value of the letters of these two words, Karas Kesef, this is a gematria, is 930. And that alludes to the years of Adam Harishon, who lived 930 years. Shloishu Mei Mishkala weighed 130 shekel on the account of the fact when Adam established offspring to perpetuate the world, he was 130 years old. That's when he had Shais, which Avram Avinu comes from, Shais. And it says Adam lived 130 years, and he had a son in his liking. So that's the 130. Michaz echad kesef, mizrak echad kesef, one silver dashing basin. These three words, again, Rashi uses a gematria. It's not a usual thing. They have the same numerical value as 520 on the count of Noah, who was 500 years old when he had the first children, and a count of 20 years that the decree of the flood was pronounced before he had his children. As I have explained regarding the verse, they will live 120 years to repent. They will have 120 years to repent. It is therefore says Mizrach Echad Kesef, and it does not say Mizrach Kesef Echad with the number ending the phrase. In the same way regarding it says Karas Kesef Achas to tell us that the letter Echad are also included into the calculation. If it would have said Mizrach Kesef Echad, you wouldn't put Echad into the calculation. Now that it says Echad in the middle, so you put it all in the calculation, which equals 520. Shivim shekel. Why was it worth 70 shekel? Alluding to the 70 nations that descended from Noach, the 70 nations. Kafach hazazor of Zav, one golden spoon weighing 10 shekel. Meleik Torah is filled with incense. Kafachas, this alludes to the Torah that was given from the hand of the Almighty. Blessed be. Asar Azav, it weighed 10 shekel. Why? Because it alludes to the 10 commandments. Meleik Torah, again, Rashi uses a gematria, this alludes to the 613 commandments of the Torah as the numerical value of Ketores. The word Ketores equals up to 613. And as long as you change the kuf to a dalet, so now you have both things what the Alter Rebbe mentioned in Tanya. You have the at bash, gar dak. At, Aleph is interchanged with a tuf, Beis with a shin, Gimel with a resh, Daled with a kuf. At bash. So you have the interchanging of letters. Verse number 21. Parecha ben Bakr, one young bull. Ayel echad, one ram. Keves echad, one lamb. Ben shnos eila was for a burnt offering. Ashes parecha, this is Keneged Avram Avinu, where it says by him, Vayikach ben Bakr, he took a calf to feed the angels. Ayel echad, one ram. This alludes to Yaakov Yitzchak Avinu, which talks about him. Abraham took a ram to save his life. Keves echad goes to Yaakov Avinu, as it says by Yaakov, Kvasim Hifrid, he segregated when the story of Lavan, he separated the sheep. Verse 22. Sir izim echad lachater, one young he-goat as a sin offering. Now she says, Lachaper, this atoned the sale of Yosef. To what it says, Vayishru to Sir izim. Over there it says, when they tricked the father that he was killed by an animal, they dipped his coat into a goat's blood. Verse 23. And for the peace offering, he bought 2 bulls, Elim Chamisha, 5 he goats, Atudim Chamisha, 5 lambs, Neshana, that's in the year, Kvasim Neshana, 5 sheep within the year, Chamisha. Zeh Karban, this is the carbon of Nisanel ben Tzuar. Now she says that the peace offering, 2 bulls, are alluding to Moshe Naden, who brought peace between the Jews and Israel, and the Father in heaven. Eilin Kavasmatunim, 3 types of animal, alluding to the priests, to the Levites, and the Israelites, and also alluding to Torah, the prophets, and the writing Tanakh. The 3 sets of 5 alludes to the 5 books of Moshe, the 5 commandments written in the first tablet, the 5 commandments written in the second tablet. Thus far, I've quoted the works of Rab Moshe Hadashin. Rashi brings down this person of Moshe Hadashin many times. Verse 24. On the 3rd day was in the tribe of the leader, the Nasi of the tribe of Zvulam, Eliyav ben Chelon. Eliyav, the son of Chelon. Rashi says on the 3rd day the princes who brought the offering was the tribe of Zvulun. As it stated, similar all remaining princes. However, regarding the Sanel, it says Hikriv. Remember Rashi before, it follows the natural to continue the prince of Yisachar, once having already mentioned his name and the bringing of his offering. Regarding the others, however, about whom it does not say Hikriv, he brought, it is natural to use the word Nasi Livnei Pleni, the prince of so and so, meaning on the day the prince who brought his offering was for that particular tribe. His carbon was a one bowl weighing 130 its weight. One silver basin, shivim shekel, so weight 70 shekel. Shekel HaKadosh in the holy shekel. Shnei mesel malayim selis. Both of these basins were filled with flour. Belula b'Hashem and mixed with oil. The mincha for a mincha offering. Kaf achas asar zav, 1 golden spoon weighing 10 shekel. Malay potatoes filled with incense. See, it is a mechal achatas, 1 he goat for a sin offering. Lezev achas shlamim bakashnayim, and to a peace offering he brought 2 sheep. Eilan chamisha, 5 rams. Atudim chamisha, 5 he goats. Kvasim neshana chamisha, 5 lambs a year. In the year Zeh Karban Eliyav ben Chelon, this was the carbon of Eliyav the son of Chelon. In the 4th day, Nasil of Nei Reuven. The 4th day was the tribe of Reuven, Elitzur ben Shdeir, who was Elitzur the son of Shdeir. Karbanei Karas Kesav Achaz, he brought 1 basin of silver. Shleisha Meim Mishkalat, 150 its weight. Mizak Echa Kesav, he brought 1 basin of silver. That was Shivin shekel, shekel HaKadosh, that was weight 70 shekel, the holy shekel. Shnei Meleim Selas, both of them filled with flour. Belula b'Hashem and wicks oil, lashta mincha for a meal offering. Kaf achas asar zav malei potatoes, 1 gold spoon weighing 10 shekel, filled with incense. Paracha ben bakal ayel, he brought 1 young bull. Ayel echa, 1 ram. Keves echa, 1 sheep. And shnasi leila, these are all for a burnt offering. See, it is echel achatas, 1 young he goat for a single offering. Lezev achas shlamim, for a peace offering, he brought bakal shnayim, 2 bulls, Elim Chamisha, 5 rams, Atudim Chamisha, 5 he goats, Kvas Neshana Chamisha, 5 lambs that were in the year Zeh Karban Elitzur ben Shdeir. This was the carbon of Elitzur, the son of Shdeir. Vayem HaChamishi, verse 36, Vayem HaChamishi, in the 5th day, Nasil of Nei Shimon was the head of the tribe of Shimon, the Shlumiel ben Tzuri Shaddai. His carbon was Karaskefas Achav, was 1 silver bowl weighing Shleisha Meim Mishkal, 130 its weight. Mizak Echa Kesav, 1 silver dashing basin that weighed Shivin shekel, 70 shekel, but shekel HaKadosh in the holy coins. Shnei and Maleim Selas, both of these basins were filled with flour. Belula b'Hashem and mixed with oil. The mincha has a grain offering. Kaf achas, 1 golden spoon. Asara za, weighed 10 gold shekel. Malay potatoes that was filled with incense. Parecha ben bakar, young bull. Ayel echad, 1 lamb. Keves echad, 1 sheep. Ben shnase la'ela, who was in a year for a carbon oila. Sir izim echad lachatas, and 1 he-goat for a sin offering. Ulezevach hashlamim, and for a peace offering. Bakar shnayim, he brought 2 bulls. Elim chamisha, 5 rams. Atudin chamisha, 5 he-goats. Kwas mneshana chamisha, 5 lambs in the first year. Ze karban, this is the sacrifice of Shlumiel ben Tzuri Shaddai. Shlumiel, the son of Tzuri Shaddai. And that completes the Chumash for today. We now go to the Tanya of the day. We continue the 2nd chapter of this Shar HaYichud V'Emunah. Chapter 2. In his opening chapter, the first chapter, the Alter Rebbe explains the divine life force which bring all creatures into existence. The teaching of the Baal Shem Tov must constantly be present within them in order to recreate and vivify them on an ongoing basis. Were this life force to forsake any created being for even a brief moment, it would revert to the state of utter nothingness. It would be like it would never existed. It's not like it'll be destroyed. It would be like it never existed, as before the creation of the universe. So its true life force is the Devar Hashem, is the word of God. From what we have just learned, Mikan Shuvas Hamin, you have the answer to the heretics. And there is exposed the root of their mistake. HaKoifrim are deemed heretics not because they deny God created the world. Everybody believes God created the world. HaKoifrim b'ashgacha pratis. They deny the individual providence, ba'osus and Mosar Torah, and the signs and the miracles recorded in the Torah, because they don't believe that the Eibishter is continuing involved with the world. So they believe that God created the world and he's the God of all gods or whatever. He's above and beyond. But that the Eibishter continues to create the world. And he's in continual, as the Baal Shem Tov taught, Ashgacha Pratis, that there's divine providence happening right now upon him and upon everything in the world. They have that mistake. They think that that's not correct. So why do they deny this when they readily admit that God created the world? It's because they earned a false analogy. They compared the work of God, who created the heavens and earth, to the work of man and his schemes. When a silversmith has completed a vessel, then once the vessel is created, the vessel doesn't need to have the artist anymore. He doesn't need the craftsman anymore. The craftsman makes a cup. Once he created the cup is there. And now the craftsman, we're talking about not like a machine, we're talking about a craftsman, a guy who takes a piece of wood and he turns it into a cup. Before he turned it into a cup, it was a piece of wood. Couldn't use it as a cup. So this is a talented thing. Takes a piece of wood, block of wood, turns it into a cup. So he created a cup. So you might think that the craftsman needs the cup goes on to exist without the craftsman anymore. See, he already formed it. Same thing, the Eibishter. God, they made the same analogy. God created the world. That's it. Just like a craftsman creates a cup, and that's it. The Eibishter created the world, And he's busy. Shemayim Lashem. The Abish is busy in heaven. He created the world, and he said, "Go, bang your heads, have a good day." And that's the way they compare it to the creation of what a craftsman makes a cup in this world. Even when the hands of the craftsman is moved from it, and he goes on his way, the vessel remains. In the image that this guy made it, with salmai and its form, mamish, it stays the same way. That's what they say. Nature, the Eibush created nature. That's it. Now they compared mamish. The Eibush created the world, he put it in the natural form, and that's it. Now it goes according to his nature. It does nothing, has nothing to do with God anymore. He created it and finished. The world is off on its way. As it left the hands of the smith. The way it left the hands of the smith, that's the way it is. And that's it. So therefore, there's no miracles, no godly concept. The world will go in its natural order. And again, and they'll agree that God created nature. But that's it. Whatever it is, it is. The same way these fools, and these, the Alter Rebbe is not talking about scientists, or the Alter Rebbe is talking about some sages, some great Talmidei Chachamim who felt this way. They imagined the heavens, the earth once created, no longer need the Creator. They therefore deny individual divine providence. He said the Baal Shem Tov brought about Hashgacha Pratis. You see, there's two kinds of Hashgacha Klalis, general. The Eibush created the world, and whenever he wants to get involved. But not that the Eibush is involved right now in the world. And God is mamish involved right now in this second, in the world. And without the Eibush's involvement, God's involvement, there's no world. So they denied that concept. They believe in God. But that God is involved right now in every aspect of the world. They can't imagine such a thing. And the signs and miracles recorded in the Torah, in so much as these indicate that God continued to be involved with creation, and for time to time chooses to change the course of nature through miraculous means. The Alter Rebbe gives the famous analogy, as you remember learning, the concept of the Kriyas Yamsuf, where the Eibush held back the water. So the nature of water to flow, and God held back the water. Change the nature of the world. Nature, that's a miracle. Maybe we should change the nature of the world. But really, Ma'aseh Bereishis is a greater miracle, the creation of the world. However, their eyes are covered, and they do not see the great difference. Hevdel Gadol, that there's a great difference between the creation of man and all his mechanisms, and all sheyesh b'yesh miyesh, that they only create something from something. Man doesn't create something from nothing. Man creates something from something. There have to be something before there. So they have great capabilities. Take a molecule, but there's got to be something. And they cannot create something from nothing. That's the difference. The Eibush gave humanity to take one form and appearance, to take like an ingot of silver and turn it into a vessel. Take a block of wood, turn it into a cup. So they change one form to another form. So man's work really consists of shaping pre-existing matter. Moreover, even the new appearance already exists in potentials. Really, everything is there already. For the nature of the physical matter, such as silver, is such that it may extend and bend and made to assume different shapes and forms. Thus, in reality, the craftsman did not change the matter at all. Hence, once he finishes shaping his artifact, he can leave it on its own device, secure in knowledge that it does not need him anymore. He created it, he formed it, and now it has its own form. The above-mentioned misguided thinkers fail to see the difference in the activities of a craftsman. L'maisa shmayim v'aretz, to the creation of the heavens and the earth, shumei yesh mi'ayin, which is created from nothing. Before the heavens and earth created, they simply did not exist. Only after they were created did they come into being as an existing entity. Yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. Their being is thus something utterly novel, something which previously had not existed at all. So if you understand a yesh me'ayin, in such a situation, the Alter Rebbe will conclude, the creative force which brings them into existence must constantly create them in order for them to exist. That's it, because they come from nothing. So it's not from something, it's from nothing. Therefore, if the creative force leaves, it goes back to nothing. Were this force to endure for even a brief moment, creation will revert to nothing. Now, the Alter Rebbe goes to the analogy I said before. Vuhu pela gadol. And this creation of Ex Nihilo, of something for nothing, is truly a wondrous concept. And it's even greater concept, Kriyas Yamsuf, than the crossing of the example of the crossing of the sea. The Jewish people say the Az Yashar every single day to speak about the wonders of the crossing of the sea. The song that the Jewish people sang at the crossing of the sea. We say it every day in davening. The Az Yashar, because the crossing of the sea, the splitting of the sea, was an unbelievable miracle. A wondrous miracle. It's one of the only miracles in the Torah that the Jewish people sang a song. So they say, even though they went through the 10 plagues, they sang a song by the crossing of Zek Kelim because they saw something wondrous. Because the Eibush, in essence, changed nature. As I said, as Alter Rebbe say, water flows, and he made it to stand. That's not the nature of water. The nature of water is to flow. But it's interesting, because you look at the pasuk, you see that the Torah says the water doesn't stand. No, it doesn't say that. In the pasuk, it says God brought a wind. So really, you can practice doing this. You can take water and take a strong wind, take a big, strong fan, and you'll make water to stand. Everybody can do this. You can try it at home. And you can create a wall of water. You take a wind and blow it. So that's why. So really, the Eibishter brought two things together to create this miracle that the water stood. The second, the Eibishter took away the wind. Like if you would take away the fan from the blowing water, the water will go back to its nature. It will continue to flow. So therefore, creation is much greater than the crossing of the sea. Crossing the sea, unbelievable, also miracle, because the Eibishter brought a wind. Also, you have to realize that crossing of the sea, the Eibishter brought 12 winds that made tunnels. So it's a pretty big miracle. It's a phenomenal miracle. But it's bringing two concepts together. And with that, the Eibishter made this situation. The pasuk says, God drove back the sea by a strong east wind all that night. Meaning the godly force that split the sea clothed itself in a wind. Because why is the wind coming here suddenly? So the wind is coming here because God brought the wind. So that's a miracle itself, that the Eibishter brought a wind to split a sea. It doesn't happen every day. And the water split, and they stopped to flow, and they stood like a wall, which is a miracle. If God would have stopped the wind, which he ultimately did, in 1 second, the water went back. Then the water would go back. It would continue to flow as its nature. So its nature is to flow. and the Eibishter brought a wind. God brought a wind, and the wind held up the water. The second God took away the wind, and the Egyptians were there. They all died. But like Karma, Kerchaim, Suffolk, undoubtedly they would not be stood upright like a wall. So the Eibishter created two natures. If you understand the story, God created two natures: the nature of water to flow, that's also its nature, and the nature of wind to hold, to blow, to push. Even though the nature of water to flow downwards is also created ex nihilo. Why does water flow? Why does brick stand straight on a wall, and why does water flow? That's its nature. That's what the Eibishter created. When the Eibishter created water, he created that it would flow. When God created cement, earth, he created that it would stand. It says, the Gemara says, like the sand of the sea. If you realize that really the ocean wants to flood, so God created the sand of the sea that would stop the water from coming onto the earth. As the Rebbe points out, the Rebbe takes this analogy. The Alter Rebbe means to say that not only water itself is a creation of ex nihilo, water itself is created by God, but the nature of water, that water flows, is also another creation. So you have in the water itself, you have double creation. You have the creation of water, the concept of water, and then you have that the water flows. Water will always go to its lowest dimension. Right? That's why God created that in water. That water would flow. But nature to flow downward is also created ex nihilo. When the mighty wind caused the water to stand like a wall, nothing was newly created ex nihilo. Yesh mi'ayin. Over there was not a creation. It was wind. The age created wind to blow. This was no more than a case of yesh mi'yesh. God put two yeshes together, water that flows, wind that holds back, and he brought them together. One existent state, the fluidity of water, was merely replaced by another existent state, the ability to remain upright. That's it. The Eibishter brought the wind and made the water stand upright. Really, that's not its nature, it's a flow. But he brought the wind, and now you have the wind and the water created yesh mi'yesh, one thing for another. Nevertheless, even though it's a yesh mi'yesh, something to something, water and air, really, the miracle would have been if the water would flow and it would stop without the wind. Now you have a transformation of nature. But that's not what happened. The Torah says openly that he brought a wind. Ruach Kodem Kol Halayla. He brought this wind, blew a whole night. So nevertheless, since the ability of water to stand rock-like is something novel, whether it's through wind or through it's a novel thing. All forces that are responsible for this novelty, even though its novelty involves no more than a progression of one yesh to another, must constantly cause it to come about. The moment, so therefore you see, even when a yesh mi'yesh, even when you try it at home, you take water, put a strong fan against it, it's going to stand up. Or push up if there's something behind it. It'll stand up. Take away the fan. It's going to go down. It's not going to continue to stay up. It's going to go down. But still, it's a beautiful thing to do. Eibishter did it. Brought a big fan into the situation. It's an unbelievable miracle that Eibishter did. He brought a fan there. He brought a wind from the Ruach Kodim. He brought this wind into the situation. It's a novel. It's an unbelievable thing. And we sing a song, Oz Yosher. Comes about the moment it ceases to do so, the novel event is arrested. Changes. We thus see the fluidity of water is not instinct to its essence. By contrast, the fact that a created being occupies space, for example, is an essential characteristic that does not require separate creation. In order for water to be fluid, is a distinct act of creation ex nihilo. The Eibishter created water again. You should realize the concept of water, the concept of water to begin with, that it's water and that it flows. Two creations of Exonilo, two wondrous creations. Alter Rebbe makes this point by citing the contrast between the case of a stone wall, which stands upright independently of any external force. So a stone wall has its nature to stand. Water is water, but it has a second concept that it flows. Stone wall stands erect by itself without the assistance of a wind. But the nature of water is not so. So since water by nature does not stand upright but flows downward, an additional degree of exonilo is called for it to do otherwise. Above them demonstrates that the divine force that clothed itself in the wind did not have to create yesh mi'ayin, a newly existed being, into creation. It merely had to change one yesh to another, one form of existence to another, the natural property of fluidity to the natural property of standing still, standing erect. Nevertheless, even in such a situation, since it's a radical degree of change is involved, it is necessary for a power causing the change to affect the change unremittingly. That it needed to have the Abish to keep that wind there, my friend. If not, it would go back. Surely then the Alter Rebbe will soon conclude, the God to creation of the world. If you understand, you sing every day the Azyosha, and you sing how God brought a wind and held up the water, thank God, and saved millions of Jews and destroyed their enemies. And that's why we just sing Azyosha. That's nothing to the creation of the heavens and the earth, which is created something from totally nothing. So what comes in absolute exonila, the activating force of the creator. See, if the wind has to be there, so surely when something comes from nothing, that water flows, there has to be a constant word of God that tells water to flow, providing it its life and existence. Indeed, it's not constantly present. We're not constantly present. The universe would revert to absolutely nothingness. So that's the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, that the Eibishter, God, constantly wants this thing. In a very personal way, God constantly wants me. God constantly wants you. There's a constantly conscious, so to say, concept that God wants each and every one of us. Much more to the creation of something out of nothing. This transcends all nature. The Heflo Pella, and it's a more miraculous event. Much greater than the crossing us. So surely, if God forbid, the power of the Creator would move away from the created, Chas v'sholem, God forbid, Yoshev HaNivra, then the created would return, la'ayim ve'efes mamish, would return to naught and utter non-existence. Again, it wouldn't be destroyed, it would go back to it never existed. Rather, the activating force of the Creator must continuously be present in the thing that's created, tamid, to give it life and ongoing existence. And what is this life force? The activating force is the self-same letters of God, speech. Asara, my mothers, from the 10 utterances, shebehem nivra, that they were created from. This is why the both quote verse says, forever, O God, your word stands in heaven. Forever. God's speech, which is the force that brings the created being into existence, must be present there forever, as to give it life and existence. And this is what the verse says. You give life to them all. Meaning God provides the heavens and the earth and all the creatures found with their life. Don't read give life. Elamahava. Not only you give life. The Gemara says, don't read machaya elamahava. You create life. You don't just give life. You give existence. Much greater than life. It's written in Neshas Chochma, as well in the Shalah, that although the verse uses the phrase gives life, this does not mean that God only provides created being with life in the way that a soul animates the already existing body. Rather, the verse implies that this provision of life also serves to create them and to be responsible for their continuous existence. And that's what the mean. The meaning is not only that you give life, you give existence. You give existence. Hey, I'm sorry, va'ata and you, va'ata machayes kulam, and you indicates, you take the word ata, that you should know in every bracha, really, ata, you. Ata is aleph, taf, hey. So that indicates these three things. Aleph and taf is aleph till taf. The Hebrew alphabet's aleph till taf. And then you have the hey. The hey mitzar sapeh. So hey is alludes to the five organs of the verbal articulation, meaning the larynx, the bladder, the tongue, the teeth, and the lips. So you have the five, the way the letters, the word comes out, because every comes out. I think we learned also the hey. We'll learn it. Hey is a breath. So the hey is a breath. It's the most breath letter in the Hebrew of hey. So hey is the breath, but hey is alludes to the way to the five capabilities of the mouth to be able to articulate, to create every letter, and the lips, which is a source of all letters. This is then the meaning. Ve'ata gives life to them all. The spiritual letters that emanate from the five supernal organs of the verbal speech provide life ex nihilo to the whole of the created universe. Even though chas v'shalom, God forbid to say that God speaks. You should be very careful. God doesn't speak. God doesn't hear. These are all human words. So how then can we speak that the letters' existence in the world above indeed added, that it's through them that he creates, God created, God, so to say, spoke? God doesn't speak. That's a human concept. But nevertheless, open the Chumash, and we talk. The Torah talks like humans talk, and therefore you open the Chumash. It says, "Vayedaber Hashem." God said, "Vayemer Hashem." And God spoke, and God said. So you have all these expressions in the Chumash today. Vayemer Hashem or Moshe, and God spoke to Moshe. So speaking is a human term, and God is above any human kind of term. But nevertheless, the Torah says the word Vayomer, and He said, This just means the Eibishter reveals Himself ultimately to a human being in the revelation of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, through the letters to the prophets. These supernal letters are then closed in the intellectual and comprehension, which are found in their prophetic vision. So the Nevi'im, even Moshe Rabbeinu, had needed to use the Hebrew alphabet so that he'll be able to understand and to use as a prophecy. They closed well into their thoughts of the prophet and their speech as it's written. Ruach Hashem diber bi. The Spirit of God spoke within me. Umileisi al lishene, and His word upon my tongue. Because a human being thinks and talks with words. As explained by the Arizal, Shara Nevuah. Clearly, there exist letters and speech above, which are capable of being garbed in the thought and speech of the prophet. So the prophet used God's speech, so to speak, in his speech. So the Eibishter talks through Lashon HaKodesh to the 20, because the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet also were created by God. Except the enclosed in letters created beings comes through numerous of powerful descents. Until the letters reach the corporal world of Asiya, and you have actually the Hebrew letter. But the comprehension of the prophets, the way they understood the prophecy in letters, which much higher. Himatzilas is the way these letters are incorporated in the world of Atzilus, the way they are enclosed in the world of Bria. So from the lofty levels that the spirit of prophecy is sent upon the prophets, in a similar fashion, the supernal level, the letters descend and are invested within the created being, providing them the life force created ex nihilo. That's why you can understand maybe the whole concept of why the Hebrew letters can be interchanged. Because in the physical, they're not interchanged. How you change an aleph to a tough? An aleph is an aleph and a tough is a tough. A bays and a shin does not work. The bays has a different sound. It's a different letter. And the shin is a different letter. How does a bays interchange with a shin? They're two different letters. They sound totally different. Bays is b and shin is sh. How do you put them together? Like an S and a B. They don't go together. But Lamaila, they do go together. Because as the letters become more spiritual in the spiritual sense, they're all interconnected, and a base can interchange with a shin, and they can a base and as you have the guttural letters, and that's why, because all these letters are lashon kodesh, they're holy letters. They're not just letters of the English alphabet, which physically cannot interchange, but since they are spiritual letters. And therefore, even in the physical way, we changed the base and the shin. He had it in Rashi today. So Rashi took a atbash, which is a spiritual concept, atbash, and he interchanged it in a pasuk to make a numerical value in a pasuk for a 5-year-old child. So therefore, you see the interchange ultimately interchanges begashmis also. Why? Because self-understood. These letters started off in the world of Atzilus, the way they expressed in the world of Bria, where they are in a much more in a spiritual context. And therefore, that's why it's very hard to understand the Navi. Because the Navi, it's very hard to understand, even Tillim. Understand the Tillim. It's very the Psalms. It's very hard to understand it. Why? Because David HaMelech understood the Tillim in a spiritual way, and understood the meanings of these words in the way they are in the world of Atzilus, in the way they are in the world of Bria, and therefore he said it in this world. Maybe you don't understand it, and that's why the Yiratzim we say that when we say Tillim is as if David HaMelech said the Tillim, because he understood the meanings of the makeup of these words, the way these words were said in the world of Bria. And he wrote it in the world of Asiya, in this world, but he understood it the way these words are written in the world of Bria. And therefore, we say it now, even though we don't comprehend maybe all these words and the way they are put together and why one pasuk follows the other and why even one word follows the other. But David HaMelech did understand the meaning of these words. And when he made it, he had all the machshavas of every single word, the way these words need to come together and what they accomplish, these words. And that's why it says, by saying Tillim, you have a direct connection to the upper worlds. And you should realize the power of saying Tillim, because they're totally connected, Lamaila. And the Rebbe is going to say something, the same thing about the words of Torah in general. I'll soon see in a moment. So Today is the 9th day of the month. The Psalm of the days is chapter 49 to chapter 54. To say those 6 chapters, you do the chitas of the day. Now look at the words of the Rebbe in the Hayom Yom for the 9th day of Sivan. The world is in need of purified atmosphere. We need to purify this world. And to purify the world, the way we purify the air of the world comes through the words of Torah. Words of Torah offer protection in general and for each individual in particular. The division of the 6 orders of the Mishnah for memorization is intended for when you speak on the road. It says in Shema, you should say these words when you're home. You should say the words when you're walking in the street. Everybody needs to learn a Mishnah Baal Peh. And when you walk in the street, say this Mishnah. Years ago, saying a Mishnah in the street, people thought you're talking to yourself. Today, Baruch Hashem, everybody can wear an earphone and people think you're talking to somebody on the phone. But really, you're saying a Mishnah, so people won't look at you weird. The Mishnah or 2 recited from memory, that's how it was always learned, Mishnayos Baal Peh. That everybody should learn Mishnayos Baal Peh. Everybody should learn a Mishnah Baal Peh. It's an easy Mishnah. I can give you a very easy Mishnah that you should learn Baal Peh. You can say this Mishnah. You should say it whenever you're in the street, driving in a car. Say a Mishnah. Baal Peh. Say it by heart. You shouldn't drive and read. The Mishnah, to recite it from memory, wherever one may be, in whatever sort of place he may be, will ultimately will illuminate the bond between Israel and God. The letters of Mishnah, Mem, Shin, Nun, Hey, are the same letters of Neshama, the soul. Nun, Shin, Mem, Hey. It's extremely difficult, the Rebbe writes, to find words to express the tremendous benefit, with God's help, in the general and individual protection that constant repetition of a Mishnah will bring. Mishnah is the oral Torah. It was dafka written that you should know about Peh, because until it was written, it was only said orally. So Mishnah was made to say orally. Mishnah was made to say Baal Peh. That was the whole reason why it was. That the Rabbi Yehuda thought you would forget it. He made sure to write it. But then you should learn it Baal Peh. You should learn it by heart. And there are no words to describe the tremendous gratification one thereby gives the Creator. May he be blessed. When you say a Mishnah, Baal Peh, when you say a Mishnah in the street, you're walking in the supermarket, wherever you are, you say a Mishnah Baal Peh. It's not very hard. Kol Yisrael yesh lam chet b'leilam haba. The Lubavitch Rebbe asked everybody that should learn 12 verses Baal Peh. Some of them are picky of us. Learn about Peh. Learn it by heart. Why? Not that to prove yourself that you can learn by heart. Learn it by heart that when you're walking in the street, when you're in the supermarket, wherever you are, say it by heart. Say the Mishnah. So when you walk in Publix, say the Mishnah while you're walking down the aisle. You retire the whole Publix. You elevate the whole Publix. Not a hard thing to do. God bless you all. I wish you all a wonderful day. And Mitzvah Hashem, at 10 a.m., we're going to come together and learn a beautiful Sikh of the Rebbe. You can come to Chabad. You can come on Zoom, Torah Direct, wherever you want to come and learn. And Amir Shem will continue tomorrow at 8 a.m. to learn the Chitas.
Rabbi, what about tonight?